Java with Joe, the podcast, is brought to you by Kemba Credit Union, celebrating over 90 years of quality service to our membership. Sponsored in part by First Choice Coffee, the official coffee of Java with Joe, and Real Vision. And now your host, President and Chief Executive Officer of the Westchester Liberty Chamber Alliance, Joe Hinson.
Thank you. We're with Lisa Phair, Realtor, owner of Lisa Phair and Associates at Coldwell Banker Realty in Westchester. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you, Joe. I'm happy to be here.
We're happy to have you. Are you from this area, Lisa?
Originally, I grew up in Trenton, so not too far from here.
All right.
And then I lived in several different states after attending the University of Cincinnati. I lived in Texas and Florida and all over the place, but then chose to come back here to start a family about 24 years ago.
Okay. So, Lisa, professionally, obviously you had a career before real estate.
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit about that. What did you do before you got into real estate?
Sure. Prior to real estate, I did corporate sales and event marketing for Dave & Buster's, and had an opportunity to open up new locations and live in several different states. And it was a great time. I learned a lot about human resources. I learned a lot about marketing and building a brand, and working with the team.
So we're familiar with Dave & Buster's here locally. Did you work were you affiliated with the one in Tri-County?
I was. I started there, and I was there for about a year before the company moved me to New York.
Okay, so you have a background that's different than real estate, but you made that transition. What was it that you found that you said, hey, I want to try something different, and why was it real estate?
Yeah, that's a good question. When I bought my first home, it was a great experience, but I was young and probably wasn't fully represented, but it definitely put real estate on my radar. I had a high interest in it, and it did take me a couple years to decide to make the jump because it was a big risk going from having a corporate salary to then becoming essentially a business owner and not knowing when I was going to get my next paycheck.
Sure.
At the time, I was also in my 20s, and so I was the youngest agent in my office. I kind of had this perception that real estate was for older people or a second career, but I was passionate about doing it, and ultimately decided to take a leap of faith and jump in.
So you got licensed in 2003, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously graduated from Realtor Institute, is that correct?
Yeah, so I took classes locally at Hondros, and then the Graduate of the Realtor Institute is an added designation that I received after getting my license.
So it's like a continuous education?
It is.
Yes.
It's a designation, yeah.
Absolutely. That's great.
Yeah.
So now that you've had more than 20 years in real estate, right? So you've seen a lot of changes. Mm-hmm. You talk about 2003, here we are in 2024. It's 21 years.
Yes.
So talk a little bit about what you've seen and maybe some of the things that have occurred most recently.
Yeah, in the very beginning, I'd say the first 5 years or so of my career, it was a balanced market. There was enough supply for buyers to comfortably be able to look at numerous houses, and sellers knew that they'd sell their home, but it might take a couple months. And then we saw the recession, where we had a lot of short sales, a lot of distressed properties, which was hard on every industry, including real estate. And then we saw the recovery around 2014 for this area. And around 2018, 2019, we started to experience an extreme deficit in housing, which made it a seller's market. And I'd say, though, the biggest change that I've seen really just happened a couple months ago in August. There was a national settlement that occurred between the National Association of Realtors from a class action lawsuit. That ended up resulting in changes that we've seen nationwide. So those changes are practices to how we do business, how we represent buyers. It's also related to commission, and that's really been kind of the biggest thing that our industry is adjusting to right now.
So how has it been for Lisa Phair and Associates to this point?
Well, I think that prior to understanding exactly what was going to happen and how we needed to change things, it made us a little bit nervous. Our focus is 100% customer service based.
Right.
Everything we do is really centered around how we can best represent our clients. So there were some things involved. For example, the way we represent buyers. It used to be that if you saw a home that you liked, you could just call an agent and go see the house.
Right.
And today, prior to seeing a home, if you want to be represented, you have to sign a contract. So it really challenged us to figure out ways to work with buyers differently and ideally to meet with them early enough in the process that they don't feel uncomfortable, jumping into seeing a house and having to sign essentially a contract before they can even see it.
So as the leader of your organization, obviously we're talking about internally with working with your team. First and foremost, you have to understand it yourself. Then
Right.
you're going to have to make sure that your team understands it. Then each time you sit down and talk with either a buyer or seller, you have to be able to explain it to them.
That's right. That's right. And we all go through that. That's part of business, and we have to grow and change and evolve. And ultimately, I think it has just made us better agents.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to go back a little bit as I think about when you started as in the real estate industry. You talked a little bit about, obviously, the recession. Which was difficult for everybody, especially in the housing industry.
Yeah.
So you had been an agent for about 5 years, and boom, we have a recession. You talked about the recovery about 2014. There was a period of 6 years there.
Yes. Yes.
At that time, did you think, wow, maybe I should look at a different career? Or what was it that kept you going, saying, hey, we're going to get past this and things are going to get better?
Yeah. I really I'm so passionate about what I do that I couldn't imagine not working with clients anymore. I couldn't imagine just completely changing industries. And I've always had this fundamental belief that when you take care of people, the money will take care of itself. So, I just felt like things would change again. We have seen this historically and economically over time. So it was really kind of about how do I adapt and how do I just stick with it until we can see a recovery.
Sure. And so I would say that in that period of time before the recession, you basically were all in, if you will, into this industry, and you moved forward. So the second part of this, obviously, is what we all went through, which was COVID. Okay, and so now we're on the other side of COVID, but still in a lot of cases recovering, doing business differently than we did prior to. What's that been like for Lisa Phair and Associates?
Yeah, you mentioned that, and there have been that should have been added to my list, right? COVID, and honestly, last year we had another major issue where the Cincinnati MLS was hacked and completely down for 3 months. So there's really been quite a bit in just recent history. But COVID was a time again where we learned and we grew, and when people were at home and we weren't sure exactly how we were going to do business, we were telling sellers, go for a walk and then we'll enter your home without you and look at it, and then we'll do an online presentation. So it helped us as a team because we developed more systems internally to be able to work with people more remotely.
Yes.
We didn't have virtual presentations before, and today, I have a client who's in California and doesn't want to come in town to physically meet and go through things, and yet phone calls aren't real personal. So we have these presentations and systems that are developed to work more remotely.
Sure.
So again, I can find a positive in that, but it was definitely a time of unknown, for a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely. So about the first 11 years, and you were in sales. Then obviously you brought in a team and started to manage them. So there was a transition for you.
Yeah.
I know you still sell, but now you manage your sales team as a training process. As a business owner, let's talk a little bit about that transition going from basically taking care of yourself now to having the responsibility of a sales team and teaching them.
Yeah. Well, there's nothing that brings me more pride than to see somebody that I've been able to work with really grow and do well. And I have witnessed time after time, newer agents that start out where I was one day in the past, and to watch folks grow and succeed. And it is a totally different ball game for sure. But again, to watch other people's success and to watch them grow is really something that I take a lot of pride in. And I also really appreciate the collaboration of a team and the opportunity to lean on other people myself,
Sure, absolutely.
So not just about, me managing them, but in our office, really everyone's opinion is valued, and we don't really have a hierarchy.
Yes, very good, very good. Well, I see that you have over 200 five-star reviews and are ranked among the top 1% of all agents in Ohio, earning numerous sales awards. So, Lisa, what is the secret of your success?
Oh, well, again, I think it's really about people. I don't view real estate as a sales industry. I view it as a service industry. And I've never chased closings or deals, so to speak. I think that when you have an opportunity to get to know people and to help them, especially with something like this, that it's typically the biggest investment that most people have. So we're dealing with something that is not only, a big financial, has big financial implications, but it's also emotional. Homes are where people brought their babies home and watched them take their first steps, and it's where they've celebrated their birthdays and their holidays. So I think it's about connecting to people, and I don't think you have to have any particular background or skill to do that. I think that if you just care about people and you learn your industry and how to best serve them, then anybody could be successful.
Absolutely. Very good. Well, we hear on the radio about the variations of peaks and valleys with the real estate market. In your experience in doing this now for 21 years, what are some of the key factors that you feel that drive the real estate market?
Well, one big one is interest rates. And last year around this time, we were seeing rates around 8%. Close to that anyway. And, most recently the Fed met and the rates went down 50 basis points, which is a huge discount for buyers in terms of their affordability. So that really, this year currently in Westchester and Liberty Township, we're down in sales. Now prices are up, so I want to be really clear. We have not lost anything in terms of value, but I think that interest rates determine how many buyers are willing to participate in the market. So as one example, if we think about the people that 4 or 5 years ago may have refinanced and they have that 2% mortgage, and maybe today they'd really like to buy something larger or buy something smaller, but they really don't want to give up that 2% rate. So that's one of the factors. I also think that another factor is the broader local economy, and looking at it more from a micro level. Schools are going to drive values. Businesses are going to drive values. One of the reasons why my husband and I chose to move to Liberty Township and have a business here in Westchester is because of those favorable economic conditions, and because now as a realtor I can't talk about schools, but I can say as a mother, I have my oldest daughter who graduated from Lakota East, and I have 2 students that are at West. So, we chose to move here because there were excellent schools, thriving businesses, and communities that are diverse. And essentially, we know that the people here in Westchester and Liberty Township, we all want the same things. We want to provide the best life for our families,
Sure,
right?
absolutely.
So I think that those are some of the biggest factors
Absolutely.
that drive the market.
Well, when you first started talking, you mentioned about maybe sales not where they were, but pricing was up.
Yes.
So I think also demographics plays a key role, obviously.
Oh, for sure. Yep, that's right. I can still list a home in Westchester or Liberty Township that if it's competitively priced and it's staged and has been maintained, in many cases, now the price range matters, but in many cases, we can still anticipate multiple offers. If we go to other areas, surrounding areas in Hamilton or Butler or Warren County, that's not always the case. You know, we are starting to see homes sit a little bit longer than they were, but the market is still excellent.
Yeah, absolutely. So you touched base, obviously, a little bit on Westchester, and obviously you live in Liberty. So currently, what is the local residential real estate market like?
Yeah, well, I would still describe it as a seller's market.
Okay.
And it's still moving very fast. So if you're a buyer that's looking in these areas, you don't want to sit over the weekend and wait to see the house. You definitely want to get in it sooner rather than later. And if you're a seller, it's still a fantastic time to sell. But we are not seeing the same. A few years ago, you might have seen 25 or 30 showings on a home and a half dozen offers. That has slowed down a bit. We aren't quite seeing that. But again, it's still very favorable, and it's improving for buyers because if they don't have to compete with 5 other people, then they probably don't have to write 3 or 4 different offers on different homes. But I think that as it begins to balance out and we have more inventory through both new construction, as well as just even all of the construction with apartments and things like that, helps to free up inventory a little bit. And as we see it become more balanced, then I think it'll create even more favorable conditions.
And you know this, but for our viewers, that Liberty Township, over the past 5 years, I believe, has been #1 in the region of new housing permits.
Yes.
And,
yes.
So it just continues, and the growth opportunities there, obviously, are tremendous. It's different than, obviously, in Westchester. But still, I mean, you bring the two together, this is a powerful area for the residential growth and basically for the return on your investment.
Yes, I totally agree. This area offers really the best of everything in terms of, again, having a lot of opportunities for housing that are still very affordable compared to surrounding communities and areas in other states, but also having the economic opportunities and having great schools. So
absolutely.
Very desirable.
Absolutely. So you've shared your knowledge of real estate on both TV and in print media.
Yes.
In fact, including connecting us on the American Dream TV show.
Yeah.
Where we've worked with, obviously, our producer here, Zoe. And so let's talk a little bit about how important that aspect has been for you, making sure that maybe the public got a chance to get to know you, what you do, but just the area, because I know that you've talked to a lot of different people in a lot of different facets of what they do here in Westchester and Liberty Townships.
Yeah, I've had some really great opportunities that some of which I think I just kind of fell into. So I'm very grateful for that, including having a chance to be here today to talk. I think that anytime you can get the word out about your craft, your business, then certainly that's a great blessing, right? We have to be able to market ourselves. We have to be able to brand ourselves. So these have been wonderful ways of doing it and a lot of fun. It's always a great opportunity. But there's nothing that I love more than to talk about the things that I love. And I love living in Liberty Township and working in Westchester. I think the people here are absolutely wonderful. So to be able to tell that story as an ambassador to the community, I think has been a real privilege.
So here we are in a kind of a different setting because when we first met doing this, you were interviewing me.
Yes, and you were
here-
excellent.
Yeah, well, thank you, and vice versa. So I'm interviewing you.
Yeah.
So you just never know. But
Right.
I think the point is that I think you have two passionate people here that really care about the community and and appreciate and want to spread the word through other people.
That's right.
And that's what we've been able to do. So that's very good, and we very much appreciate that. So, but your community involvement also is very impressive. Let's think first of all, Lakota District Parent Council.
Yeah, I've been serving on the Lakota DPC for probably 10-ish years, and I've been the chairperson for, I think, the past 6. It's a great opportunity to meet with ambassadors from all 22 buildings, as well as the superintendent and administration on a regular basis. So I get the opportunity every month to learn about all the wonderful things that are happening in the schools and to be able to provide input on different initiatives and things like that.
And also organizer for the Lakota Board of Education Meet the Candidates Nights, where we've had a chance to work together.
Yeah, that also I think is really important. This year, as you know, there's the election. There are no seats available for the Lakota Board, but we'll look forward to doing that again next year. Again, to provide an opportunity for parents and other community members to really hear directly from leaders themselves. And I think it's all about connecting people. And of course, you know that. Anyone that knows you knows that if you're in a room with other people, you're going to connect people and bring them together. So I think that that's what that does as well.
Very good. Also, you received the Community Service Award from Housing Opportunities Made Equal. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. Housing Opportunities Made Equal is a nonprofit organization in Cincinnati, and they are funded by grants, but also from the from HUD, Housing in Urban Development through the federal government. And Housing Opportunities Made Equal was first established after the Federal Fair Housing Act, so it's been around for about 50 years. And at that time, housing discrimination looked, of course, very different. It was a lot of it was racially driven. There was redlining, there was blockbusting, and we had a lot of real issues. Cincinnati has kind of a dark mark on the history, as many other places do, because of this. And today, it's still relevant. A little bit different, though. I mean, the number one complaint that is received today is actually from people with disabilities, as well as the LGBTQ community. So I am very passionate about equal rights, about fair housing, and that organization really kind of marries the two,
Sure.
Housing and equal rights. So serving on their board and engaging in, community activities and things like that is how that award came about.
And so your profession has given you a platform.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, it's really, again, critical, in my opinion, that we make sure that housing is available to all. It is the American dream. It is the best way that we build wealth, especially when we're younger. Yeah. And we've got some issues right now that, certainly we need to look at. For example, I think it's much harder. I bought my first home when I was 23, and I have a 24-year-old. And her opportunities today are very different than what mine were. And a lot of that, we hear a lot of conversation about it, but it has to do with housing affordability. So I think it's much harder for younger people today to buy a home when they're younger. In fact, the average age of first-time buyers has gone up by 6 years. just in recent years.
Yeah.
So in the tenure that I've had in real estate, it was certainly not uncommon to work with first-time home buyers that were 24 to 27. And a lot of our first-time home buyers today are, somewhere between like 28 and 33.
Yeah.
So their first home is when some of us would have bought our second homes. So it's different. We've got some work to do, certainly, in that area.
Absolutely. So another award was received the Human Rights Campaign's HER Award. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, the HER Award I received a few years ago for my advocacy for LGBTQ youth. I worked with a lot of local schools, universities, as well as different parent groups and nonprofits like the YMCA, to learn more about programs and training and how to best serve LGBTQ and specifically transgender kids. So the HER Award was due to those efforts.
Very good, very good. And we would be remiss if we didn't mention the 2022 Art and Dorothy Roth Citizen of the Year Award through the Westchester Liberty Chamber Alliance.
Yes, thank you. That was such a wonderful night, and I was very humbled to receive that award. I know a relative of Art and Dorothy, and had an opportunity to learn more about, the award's namesake,
Sure.
which made it even more special. But standing there when I received that and kind of looking around the room, I thought, why am I up here? There are all these amazing people. But, essentially, I feel like it's our civic duty to do the best we can in our community to serve other people.
Sure, absolutely.
And outside of work, that's something that was instilled in me from my mom, and that I try to instill in my children, because if we all just did a little bit more, then I can't even imagine, the amazing things we could do as a community.
Absolutely, absolutely. So as people are watching this, and they go, "Wow, what a career! You've been able to do a lot of different things in your profession, outside your profession, but it basically kind of comes together as one, which is pretty exciting."
Yeah.
What would you recommend to someone who would like to get into real estate?
Well, I think it's what you just said. I think that there are a lot of ways to be successful in real estate. And as I mentioned a few minutes ago, you don't have to have a particular background or skill. I have seen teachers who have been successful. I've seen engineers who have switched careers and been successful, people with medical backgrounds. I think that in general, if you work hard and you care about people, and you care about learning the industry, and you put people first, then anyone can be successful. But when I have a new agent that joins my team, which most recently is my daughter, Grace, my 24-year-old, it's just been amazing to work with her, and she got her license last year. And one of the things that I have shared with her is that if you get involved in the community and in different ways that you are passionate, if that's serving animals in an animal shelter, or if it's children at Boys and Girls Club, I'm passionate about working with kids and seeing them grow, which is why I'm involved in schools. But you can use any of your passions to create opportunities, to network within those organizations, and really marry, as you said, your passions outside of your job with your job. And it's really the best way, because you don't feel like you work a day in your life. You're just out there doing what you love.
Yes, and we can surely tell. So what can we expect in the next several years from Lisa Phair and Associates?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, I'm always looking for different opportunities and ways to serve the community. Not sure exactly where that will take me, but I have no doubt that a door will open, or I'll be tapped on the shoulder and it'll feel right. But, we will continue to work very hard in this market, and continue to be engaged with not only our clients, but also local organizations, and hopefully continue to grow our business in that way.
Very good. Well, this has been Lisa Phair of Lisa Phair and Associates. Lisa, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Happy to be here again.
Java with Joe has been brought to you by Kemba Credit Union, sponsored in part by First Choice Coffee and Real Vision. Thanks for listening.